We take our bearings from Aristotle in our article and in our book in how to analyze any sort of a community. Aristotle tells us that you can analyze any community by looking at the actions that the community engages in, the goods that the community seeks, and then the norms of commitment that shape that community's common life together. So to take a non-controversial example, let's take a university community. A university community, the members of the community engage in academic action. What sort of things are academic actions? Your professors will research and write academic articles and academic books. They'll then put these on the syllabi, not just to get their commission from having you buy their overpriced textbooks, but also so that you can then read the benefit of all the hours of research that they put in while writing their dissertation and researching for their next scholarly publication. So students read articles and read books. Professors then deliver lectures. Students attend lectures and take notes. Students then write term papers. Professors then grade term papers. Students come to office hours and discuss their papers with their professors. These are the sorts of activities that constitute an academic community as an academic community. Beer pong and football games are nice additions, but they don't go to the heart of what makes a university a university. What goes to the heart are these intellectual activities. Now, what are these intellectual activities ultimately seeking? What is the good that these are oriented towards? They're oriented towards the good of the truth. They're oriented towards the good of knowledge. All of the exercises that your professors make you engage in, the homework assignments, the term papers, the research projects, all of the work that they themselves do in writing those books and papers and delivering those lectures is all about eliminating ignorance from our lives and coming to a better appropriation of the truth of the matter so that we can have a better understanding of what is really true, so that we're not living in ignorance, we're not living in superstition, we're not living with just preconceived opinions. That's what all of these actions are oriented towards. They're oriented towards the good of knowledge, the good of the truth. So then lastly, what sort of commitments does this require of a university community? This is where all of the commitments for academic integrity and academic freedom and the honor code come into play. This is why you can't plagiarize your term papers. This is why you have to cite all of your sources. This is why if you're a scientist, you want to cite all of the data, not just the data that might support your hypothesis. You want to cite all of the data, including the data that might call it into question, because if another researcher comes along and then writes a review of your paper and says, wait, here are some of the weak spots, here's an alternative way of analyzing the data, you don't view it as an attack. You view it actually as something liberating. They've corrected a mistake in your argument. They've helped you see the fullness of truth. They've helped you eliminate a piece of ignorance out of your life. This is why when your professors make comments on your papers, you shouldn't view it as an attack. You should view it as they're trying to help you to write better papers so that you can better understand the truth. Okay, so that's how a university ought to exist. Unfortunately, this isn't always true on college campuses. But we can use that same basic framework to analyze what makes the marital relationship marital. What makes marriage different than other forms of community? What makes the marriage community different than the football team and different than the university? And my co-authors and I say marriage is a comprehensive relationship, and it's comprehensive in exactly those three ways. It's comprehensive in the act that unites spouses. It's comprehensive in the goods that the spouses are inherently ordered towards. And it's comprehensive in the norms of commitment that it requires from the spouses. Let me say a few words more about each one of those 3 points. Professor Rudiszewski did a wonderful job of explaining how we're mind-body unities. We're not ghosts and machines. We're not souls that are somehow inhabiting flesh and bones, but we're a mind-body unity. So to unite with someone at a comprehensive way, we have to unite with them at all levels of their personhood. So this act that unites us comprehensively will be an act that unites us hearts, minds, and bodies. And now the good that it orients us to won't be some particular singular good, like the good of winning the next football game or the good of passing the next test. It'll be a comprehensive good. And we argue that that comprehensive good is what Professor Rudiszewski mentioned as procreation, understood as both the creation and then the rearing of whole new human organisms who are going to be raised to participate in all of the forms of human goodness. It sets the trajectory of that marital relationship on this comprehensive plane. And then lastly, it calls for a comprehensive commitment a commitment of both permanency and exclusivity, so that it's comprehensive throughout time, and it's comprehensive at this moment of time by forsaking all others. This is the most dense part of this morning's talk. So if you're having trouble, it will get much easier after this. It'll get faster. It'll be much more humorous and entertaining and enjoyable. I promise. But let me say a few more words, because this actually is getting to the bedrock of our argument. This gets to the core, and it's something that our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents just took for granted. And so putting it into Aristotelian terminology, fleshing it out, requires some work from what used to be common sense. But let me say a little bit more. What is it, how to do the analysis of the comprehensive act that spouses engage in? How is it that two people can unite comprehensively? We said that we want this to be an act that will unite us at all levels of our personhood, so a union of hearts, minds, and bodies. Professor Gruszewski pointed out that with most respects, all respects except one, we're complete as individuals. With respect to locomotion, I can get up and walk across this platform on my own. With respect to digestion, when we're done and we have lunch, I'm going to be able to eat my meal and digest it just fine as an individual. With respect to circulation, respiratory system, all of those things were complete. With respect to one biological function, we're radically incomplete. He mentioned it's the function of procreation. So that in that conjugal act, a man and a woman don't just rub up against each other or interlock as if I was to stick my finger in one of your ears. They truly form a two-in-one flesh union. It's a single function, a single organism that's being formed by a mated pair. It's a single biological purpose that the twosome performs together as a unity. And so in the same way that you could say, what is it about my body that makes me an individual? What is it about me that makes my muscles and my heart and my lungs and my stomach and my intestines not just a clump of cells, but makes them a unity, is that they're all coordinating with each other, they're interacting with each other towards a single, unified biological end, the good of my continued existence. In the same way, that man and that woman, when they unite in that conjugal act, are coordinating towards a single, unified biological purpose, that good of procreation. And so the Hebrew Scriptures, when it describes them in that act as a two-in-one flesh union, they're not just speaking poetically or metaphorically, they're revealing something true about human nature and about what the sexual complementarity of a man and a woman allows for in terms of an act that can unite them. And now this act unites them so completely that 9 months later, it frequently requires a name. The lovemaking act is also the life-giving act. The act that unites a man and a woman as husband and wife is the same act that can make them mother and father. And so that begins to tell us something about what the marital relationship is ordered towards. You know, what is the orientation, the orderedness, the good that the marital relationship seeks? In the same way that academic communities engage in academic actions that are ordered towards the pursuit of the truth and knowledge, it's the marital relationship, spouses engage in a marital act that is intrinsically ordered towards both their unity and the procreation, and then the rearing and education of children. So it's a comprehensive action that unites them, hearts, minds, and bodies, that then orients them towards a comprehensive good, the procreation, the rearing, the education, the raising of new human beings. And then lastly, this can explain why marriage requires comprehensive commitments, both exclusive and permanent. And now, what sort of exclusivity does marriage call for? It's sexual exclusivity. You don't cheat on your spouse by attending a lecture with someone other than your spouse. You don't cheat on your spouse by playing football with someone other than your spouse. But you do cheat on your spouse when you sleep with someone other than your spouse. And this view of what marriage is can explain why the type of exclusivity that marriage calls for is sexual exclusivity. Because it's the sexual act that transforms an ordinary friendship, a union of hearts and minds, into the comprehensive domain of marriage. It transforms it into that comprehensive union of hearts, minds, and bodies. And so the conjugal act, which is distinctive of marriage, which is why it's called the marital act, is the act that is exclusively reserved for the spouses. And that's the type of exclusivity that marriage requires. None of you are being unfaithful to your spouses by being at this lecture. So then we can say, what about the other comprehensive commitment? It's a comprehensive commitment that will require a permanent commitment. And I think, again, Professor Budiszewski spoke very well about this. To give a total gift of the self requires that you don't hold anything back. If you have a sunset clause, if you have an escape date, if you have a way out, then you're not really uniting comprehensively. To unite comprehensively requires an open-ended commitment. So the type of comprehensive union that's being formed requires an exclusive, forsaking all others here and now, but also into the future. Comprehensive throughout time and comprehensive at this moment in time. This basic view of marriage that we run on Aristotelian grounds and using some Aristotelian jargon is something, though, that we find in the ancient thinkers, not just the Christians, but Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, Musonius Rufus. It's something that we then find in the canon law, the common law, and the civil law of the church, common law of England, civil law of America. It's something that we see in thinkers like Augustine and Aquinas, Luther and Calvin, but also Enlightenment thinkers like Locke, Kant, Eastern thinkers like Gandhi. So what this suggests to my co-authors is while everyone has a slightly different phraseology, a different way of putting the point, they have differences around the margins. Professor Budiszewski mentioned that for Locke, marriage need not require permanency, that after the children are grown, divorce may not in every case be immoral, but it still has an expectation of permanency for Locke. What this suggests to us is that there's something about the human good of marriage that different political, philosophical, and theological communities have all been trying to articulate with greater or lesser success. That it's a bunch of different thinkers in different times and places have all been grappling with the same human reality of marriage. What is it about our nature as embodied males and females, the type of union we can form, the type of good that that union can produce, and the type of commitments that it requires? And that's what we're trying to articulate here and now so that our marriage policy can reflect that truth and to promote that truth.